In a galaxy as deadly and so riven by war as the 41st millennium, not every battle goes in the Imperium's favour. The armies of man are put in desperate situations endlessly, constantly tasked with hopeless odds. Many armies find their backs against the wall with no choice but to stand their ground. They make their last stand to at least carve their legend into the annals of Imperial history. And here are just 5 of those heroic rages against the end. Seen in 2013's Traitor's Gorge, the Crimson Fists lost near everything when their chapter monastery exploded due to a faulty missile. Their forces were utterly devastated, their gene seed stores were lost, and their main defensive bastion against the coming Orc war was a smouldering crater. So, Rin's world burned, and the Crimson Fist seemed all but doomed to be wiped from the Imperium. Yet, after a heroic journey to New Rin City, the Crimson Fists held out long enough for Imperial reinforcements to arrive, and the Orc war to be broken. What concerns us today, though, is this. What happened 6 months after the war was broken, and the Imperial reinforcements left the remaining Crimson Fists to clean up the shattered remnants of the Orc war? It was during this cleanup that Pedro Cantor and 24 Marines found a large holdout of Orcs in a valley that would become legend. Traitor's Gorge. Pursuing the remnants of one Orc warband into the valley, the Marines had to enter through a tight passage in the rocks, the only way in and out of the gorge. After dealing with the Orcs they were chasing, they found they were completely surrounded. The Marines had no hope of reinforcements. All their allies had left or were otherwise engaged, and the entire chapter's stock of Thunderhawks was destroyed or damaged. So the Crimson Fists formed a ring, and the Orcs came wave after wave. The Crimson Fists reaped a heavy tally. The Sons of Dawn, putting into practice their prodigious skills with the bolter, saw to it that no one Orc made it eye to eye with them. When they ran out of ammo, they stood shoulder to shoulder, a ring of blades, slaying so many Orcs that they literally began to build defensive walls out of their corpses. The Crimson Fists' attrition dragged so long that most of their blades broke. In desperation, they picked up Orc weapons, wielding their own crude axes and guns against the Greenskins. Yet, it was hopeless. The Orcs were too many, and one by one, the Crimson Fists began to die. Pedro Cantor even made peace with his own death. But suddenly, from the cliff tops, shadowy figures appeared, firing strange weapons at the Orcs, and leading the Greenskins into traps which sliced them to shreds. The Crimson Fists were saved, and their saviors were revealed to be the Eldar of Alitok. The Eldar's Farseer had foreseen that Cantor would prevent the uprising of a powerful Orc warlord that would eventually go on to destroy their craft world. After a few terse words, the Eldar and the surviving Crimson Fists parted ways, and Cantor went on to hunt this Orc warlord, while the Eldar returned to the safety of their craft world. I will die on this world. These words echoed through Grimoldus' head the moment he stepped onto the hive world of Armageddon. As seen in Helsreach, the Third War for Armageddon is one of the biggest Orc versus Imperial conflicts in the Imperium's history. The Orcs were led by Ghazghkull Mag Uruk Thraka, the prophet of Gorge, and or quite possibly Mork, who had come to the world as Gaz had a vision of a great war there, and this vision was swiftly fulfilled. The Imperials not only wished to defend this important manufacturing world, but saw the situation as a chance to finally slay the Great Green Prophet. Helsreach itself was relatively unimportant. Sure, it was still an important manufacturing hub, but so was every other hive on the world. The real place of vital importance was the Hemlock River, where they planned to break the Orc war in the field. The Siege of Helsreach is as long as it is legendary. Grimoldus did a lot with relatively little, but it was a defeat. Helsreach fell. There were numerous last stands in the hive, valiant defenders from guard air bases to noble houses. Each died to a man trying to hold back the Greenskins. Yet, it is Grimoldus' last stand in the Temple of the Emperor Ascendant that captured the minds of the Imperials and fans alike. Grimoldus and his squad retreated back to the Temple District, their chaplain seeking to die on holy ground. A handful of other guard forces were there with them as they made a valiant stand in the temple's courtyard, even gaining some reinforcements in the form of the temple's Adeptus Sororitas. At the time, it all seemed pointless. An Orc scrap gargant was bearing down on those final defenders, one so mighty it had felled the Imperator Titan Storm Herald. Yet the true beginning of this last stand was signified by that gargant's destruction. A secret weapon of the Mechanicus, the Ordinatus Armageddon, was unearthed and awakened on Grimoldus' orders. The giant Nova Cannon weapons platform destroyed the Gargant in a single shot, but despite this, Grimoldus declared the city lost. He told Jurizian, the sole tech marine piloting the Ordinatus, to take it far from the hive. The survivors in the courtyard retreated into the temple's inner sanctum, where they would hold their ground. The orcs rushed into the temple, and swiftly the fighting devolved into a bloody melee. One by one, Grimoldus watched his brothers die, one even begging for his aid as they burned. Grimoldus' best friend Atarian died back-to-back with the chaplain as the temple collapsed all around them. Miraculously, Grimoldus and a handful of other guardsmen survived. Though only Grimoldus was remembered by history, relics were taken from the temple, and Grimoldus was raised into an icon of faith by the ecclesiarchy. Later, reinforcements would arrive, and, thanks to the Season of Fire, a period of massive tectonic activity that forced the orcs to retreat, Helsreach was able to be retaken. For Grimoldus, we think his perspective can be summarized by quoting the man himself. "Hero of Helsreach, they call me, as if there was only one." It was a hard choice between Isstvan III and the Dropsite Massacre, but we decided to put Isstvan III on here for one simple reason. Isstvan III saw a simple line captain, an officer no one expected any greatness of, led a ragtag bunch of ambushed Astartes, who were outnumbered and outgunned to a stalemate against most of the traitor Primarchs. This man was none other than Saul Tarvitz. As seen in Galaxy in Flames, Saul Tarvitz was overlooked and derided within his own legion. Yet, when he discovered Horus's betrayal, he not only warned the Loyalists on the planet, but went down to the surface and assumed command of the Loyalist forces. He worked with Garviel Loken and Tarek Torgadan, both Loyalist sons of Horus, and they rallied the Loyalists after Horus's initial bombardment. The Loyalists who had occupied the defensive works had moments before being assaulted, and honestly stood a better chance here than at the Dropsite Massacre. The Loyalists at the Dropsite were caught in the open unloading of their dropships, whereas at Isstvan III they had bunkers, trenches, and citadels. They fought the traitors every step of the way to the final citadel where they dug in for a siege. Under this mere line officer, the finest commanders of the traitors, Primarch and Astartes alike, were repelled from the walls of Pral's stronghold. They could have easily held for who knows how long, perhaps even long enough for Nathaniel Garrow, who was, as this battle raged, racing to warn the Emperor. We can't stress how insanely capable Saul Tarvitz proved himself as a commander during this battle, and how brave. He had the same option as Garrow to retreat, but he made planetfall knowing full well what he would face. Throughout the book, Fulgrim, Saul Tarvitz is derided by his fellow Emperor's children, but on the bloodstained rock of Isstvan III, he proved himself a tactical genius on par with a Primarch. So when did this siege turn into a last stand? Lucius, not yet having earned his moniker, the Eternal, was utterly jealous of Saul Tarvitz. This line officer, a hero? More glorious than Lucius, the master swordsman? No. So Lucius betrayed his brothers, betrayed the defenders of Isstvan III, though Saul Tarvitz would deal him one last wound. Saul defeated Lucius in a duel, failing to kill the traitor by the narrowest of margins. It was too late though. Lucius's betrayal had sealed the Loyalists' defeat. Horus ordered massive bombardments of Pral's citadel, and the last we saw of Saul Tarvitz was still holding back the traitors, fighting for every inch. There was a time where many fans believed that Saul Tarvitz was in fact not dead, as we never actually see his body. But sadly, Warhammer community and various writers have confirmed that he died in the final bombardment of the world. As Cadia burns, Guilliman awakens, and the Primaris are released upon the galaxy. The Blood Angels fight a desperate last stand, as seen in Devastation of Baal. Baal Prime and Baal Secundus are under assault from the Tyranids of High Fleet Leviathan. The Blood Angels have assembled near every one of their successors and are practically fighting at Legion strength, but to no avail. They're losing ground on every front. Whole chapters disappear in the blink of an eye, as, despite the Blood Angels reaping a heavy toll on the foe, the Tyranids are simply too numerous. Their first line of defense fell when the Tyranids piled up so many dead in their moat that their larger bioforms could simply walk across the corpses. The second line fell when a lictor infiltrated the fortress monastery and disabled its void shields. 5 chapter masters fell, trying to hold the line, but their efforts were all for naught. Baal Secundus is already being devoured thanks to the Swarmlord forcing Gabriel Seth to retreat. Dante then slays the Swarmlord but is badly wounded in the fight. A relative handful of the sons of Sanguinius stand between them and annihilation when the Sanguinor arrives. A shining golden avatar of Sanguinius himself. He carves through the Tyranids, slaying them in the hundreds, but it means nothing. Baal is doomed. The Tyranids have won, and the legacy of Sanguinius shall end here. The remaining Blood Angels ready themselves for the end. Then, the sky opens. Yet, it's not salvation, but merely another foe. The Great Rift opens, and above Baal, a host of cornate demons emerge, howling into reality. The bloodthirster Kabanda had come, declaring to the Tyranids that none had the right to end the sons of Sanguinius, but they themselves. Kabanda had dueled Sanguinius long ago, and is thought by some to be the origin point of the Red Thirst in the Blood Angels. The Great Rift cut off any Tyranid reinforcements, meaning those on Baal could be easily slaughtered by the demons. All forces on Baal Prime were slaughtered, Dante and Gabriel Seth only escaping thanks to the sacrifice of an entire chapter known as the Knights of the Blood. Finally, salvation came. The Indomitus Crusade arrived at Baal, led by the newly returned Primarch Rabute Gilliman. The Crusade mopped up the last of the demons and Tyranids on the 3 celestial bodies of Baal, ending the devastation. A harrowing event for all that was in truth just a string of desperate last stands, one after another. Our final, heartbreaking entry comes from The End and the Death, Volume 3. The Emperor lies, seemingly lifeless, on the floor of a chamber within the Vengeful Spirit. Alania's person has travelled far to be here, all the way from ancient Earth history, before the days that the world was known as Terra. For you see, Olanius is a perpetual, a being unable to die. Yet that doesn't matter here. Horus can kill perpetuals. Olanius and the Emperor were friends once, eons ago, but Olanius isn't anywhere near as powerful or as strong. Olanius is just a simple man, gifted with eternal life. In the same room as Olanius, as he tends to the seemingly dead Emperor, is Horus. Laying on his back, stunned by ancient magic and badly wounded from his duel with the Emperor. Yet, he stirs. Dark light swirls around him and knits together his body, reforges his armor. He rises, even more terrible than before, all the might of chaos swirling through him. For if the Emperor will not become the 5th Chaos God, then Horus will. The heavy footfalls of the War Master echo through the room, only accompanied by the dragging of his gigantic mace. Yet, one other noise sounds out in the room. Olanius, fumbling with his rifle, screaming at Horus to stay back and to come no further. Olanius' screaming advances a step towards the incarnation of chaos, the would-be god towering over the man, burning with the destruction of the galaxy and all the despair life brings. He doesn't even notice Olanius' screams or protests. What is this man to him? Less than a speck of dust. Olanius opens fire. It does nothing. And, with a swat of his hand, Horus turns Olanius into a spray of red mist, utterly destroying the Perpetual's soul, leaving not even a flicker of him. Yet, this single pause to swat Olanius was all the Emperor needed to awaken, to rise, to end Horus and reduce him to nothing. In a way, the galaxy was saved from utter annihilation by one man. Not a Primarch, not an Astartes, but a man. Pity not the guardsman, for within it beats the heart of a man. Behind every paragraph and reference in these videos, there's a mountain of research, editing, and more than a few burnt-out cogitators. That's where our patrons come in, with multiple tiers offering a variety of things, from exclusive chats in our Discord to personalized artwork created for our individual patrons. Every subscription keeps the machine spirit of the Astartes Anonymous YouTube channel appeased. And for our top-tier patrons, a display on the Wall of Honor at the end of each podcast. So if you're enjoying the content, please do consider taking a quick look at our Patreon. Thanks so much for watching.